This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining Gym, the strongest gym in the West. We're here today at Slingshot World Headquarters, and I want to talk to you today about a Stoic quote from the philosopher, the great philosopher, Seneca. I think this is kind of maybe like the root base of Stoicism in general. Whenever you get lost and you're not sure about what some of these passages are and you're not sure what someone's talking about when they talk about Stoicism, I think if you can just remember this sentence, or some form of this sentence, that you're heading in the right direction. And Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than we do in reality." We have a tendency to let our mind wander about what might happen, what might be. How is this thing going to turn out? And you're not in the present moment, which I know you hear a lot of people talk about, but being in the present moment should be able to ground you enough to think, well, there's nothing I can do, like literally nothing I can do about stuff that's going to happen 2 days from now or 3 days from now. You could have some discipline, some habits, you could have some things in your life that have you heading in that direction, but again, you could have peace of mind knowing that when you go into this present moment, you could say, I'm heading there. I can feel it. I feel like I'm actually honestly heading in that direction. And if you're not heading in that direction, I don't even think there's any reason to build up anxiety over that as well. To me, that a lot of times shows a lack of interest, so you have to kind of question that more so than anything. You have to say, did I really want to lose 20 pounds or did I only want to lose 15? Because it stopped, you know, and the dedication and the kind of restriction that you might need to go through coming up in bringing down your calories and just kind of being at peace with being hungry, that might not be as desirable as you thought. And you might not have recognized how hungry you need to be to continue to drop weight. Because ultimately, at some point, that's what will happen. You're gonna have to get into an uncomfortable position. But I really love this quote a lot. I think it's a root base of all Stoic philosophy, because we have to recognize that we have a choice. We can choose how we want to interpret something. We get to choose whether we're going to take this information in and okay, now I'm going to be mad about it. I want you to kind of think about this for a minute. Those of you that are in disbelief of some of the stuff that I've been sharing, or those of you that are non-believers that these techniques and these things, this way of thinking can really be effective. Because you might be like, well, it doesn't work with me because I'm a super emotional person. Well, I would start to try to change the dialogue that you have about yourself and saying that you're an emotional person, because I think that someone that's an emotional person is also an irrational person, since acting on emotions is irrational to begin with in a lot of ways. But it is a mechanism at which human beings make decisions based off of. How can we reframe this idea of you thinking that you're an emotional person? Well, when someone tells you that it's going to be 100 degrees out for the next 5 days in a row, do you really have to go, oh, that's going to be awful. Oh man, I hate when it's hot out. Do you have to do that? Or could you let that slide off your back a little bit more and go, oh wow, okay, 100 degrees. I don't really enjoy the heat that much, so those next couple of days I'm going to be pretty sweaty. So I'm going to wear less clothes. I'm going to wear shorts. I'm going to wear a tank top. Could you kind of think about it in that way? Could you take your emotional level that you currently have, could you take your emotional intelligence and could you improve it? Can you improve your regular intelligence? Can you improve your strength? Right? I mean, these are all things that if you're being honest with yourself, you can very easily improve them. There's not a human being on this earth that doesn't possess the ability to get better. We all have our limitations, and we all have like things that might be in our way. We all have things that might be tough. And also I'm willing to admit that where we start out in life, we don't get to pick that. That hurdle is something that I personally have never had to deal with. I'm a white American, and so I haven't had maybe the same resistance as other races. I'm also male, so I don't have some of the challenges that females might face. I grew up in a awesome family with 2 great parents, with more than just a roof over my head, with everything I ever wanted, everything I ever needed, all the hugs and kisses that kind of accompany being in a good, strong, healthy family. And then on top of that, not just my brothers and not just from my parents, but outside the family, extended family, cousins, uncles, the whole entire family has been really amazing. So I'm not blind to that. We do all start in a different position, but everything is still a choice. So if you can picture us on a track, well, you know, we're all running a race. We're all trying to run towards success, let's just say, right? Fairly or unfairly, or however you want to say it. If you're female, maybe you have to take one giant step back. If you're black, maybe you have to take a step back. If you grow up poor, maybe you got to take a step back, right? So you kind of see what I'm saying? Where you're starting, you could view it as a disadvantage, and I'm okay with understanding that fact. But you still have control over how you react to things. You might have to figure out a way to run a little bit faster, because if I might be starting out a little bit ahead, you may have to figure out, you know, rather than just even running faster, what about just having a stronger ability to endurance, right? We see that from people that grow up with maybe not all the things that a child should grow up with. A lot of times, or there's the other side of it as well, but a lot of times they figure out how they're gonna be able to endure. How am I gonna, you know what, F this, I'm gonna figure all this out, and I might not be the best at this, and I might not have been gifted that. I might not have maybe some of the other opportunities available to me yet that some of these other people have, but I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm just gonna endure it. I'm gonna last longer than anybody else. I'm gonna hang in this pocket, and I'm gonna keep getting better at this thing, because where I am right now is not a great representation of where I'm gonna be 5 years from now. You have the ability to think about that. And when you take this quote into consideration, that oftentimes the worst suffering that will ever happen to you is just up here. The other part of this quote that I think is really cool, we suffer more often in imagination than we do in reality. But the way that this thing ends up is actually really interesting. He talks about how we can't control the different influences in the world. We can't control whether this is good, we can't control whether that's bad. We really don't have a lot of control over a lot of things, but we always have some agency and some control over what we do. And he says that the constant suffering is something that we do have a choice to stop, because we don't have to interpret things to necessarily be bad. It's up to you to figure out a way on how to interpret the information. The constant suffering we endure is at the hands of our own imagination. Yikes. Right? Again, there are outside influences, there are outside things, and there could be somebody doing harm to you, so I don't want to dismiss those things. This is not to do with that necessarily. This is talking about what we're doing on the inside. And even if you are someone who's abused or neglected, or has been abused or neglected, your internal dialogue could still be viewed as less than optimal. You could be still choosing modes of interpretation. You could still be choosing modes of interpretation that aren't serving you. They're not helping you. They're not assisting you. And that's all that matters, is that we're able to put one foot in front of the other foot so we can continue to move forward, right? That's what we're all about. That's what this YouTube channel is all about. Remember, I've talked before about mentorship. That's what I'm hoping to do for you guys. And you guys might not know this, but you help mentor me as well, and you help mentor the other people that ask questions, because I see you guys commenting, hey, so-and-so, did you ever read this book? Or you guys have dropped me a line, hey, have you heard this quote before, Mark? Maybe you can share with me your favorite quote in the comments below. And when you do so, we're gonna pick randomly to win this shirt right here. So in the comments below, tell me what some of your, they don't have to be stoic, but it's kind of cool if they kind of go and flow with some of this. I'm gonna wrap this up. We endure at the hands of our own imagination. For many, it is a long journey to change these patterns of thinking. But if anything is worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. I'm gonna read that last part again. If anything is worth doing, it is worth doing poorly. It's like, what in the world does that mean? That just means that if you go to try something and you suck at it, don't worry about it, because it's worth doing. And will you get better at it? Of course you will. I may have mentioned this in a previous YouTube message that I've shared with you guys in the past, but you know, think about when you play Mario Brothers, right? And your first time you ever played. Well, when you go and you fall into the pit in the beginning, you just learn that that's the way that your guy dies, right? But you don't throw the controller and have a fit. Not on the first game. Maybe after you've been playing for a while, you get pissed. On the first game, you're like, oh, that sensation of pushing the button and making him jump and making him kill the turtles and all these different things that Mario does, and hitting the question marks and eating mushrooms and getting jacked, you find that the game feels fun. You pushing the buttons and it feels kind of cool. When the guy dies, you don't flip out about it. You're not like, oh man, this is just more proof that I'm a failure in all of my life. Like everything I do is messed up, and I walked right into the turtle and my guy died. Instead, you're like, I'm gonna give this another shot. This is because it's fun. So anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, which sounds very counterintuitive, but I like the quote, and I think it's great because I think it can teach us, hey, stick with it, because this first go of it, this isn't a representation of where you're gonna be after you do it the 10th time, the 15th time, the 30th time, the 400th time. It's not a good representation of where you're gonna be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You'll get better at it. I only know these things from practice and from owning a business now for 10 years. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, my knowledge of business before I started a business was like a 2. And I would say now, it's since increased a lot. I'm over a 5, but I'm not a 10. I know enough to have helped make it successful, right? But I'm using that example to point out to you that I didn't have a previous jump start into that was going to be something that was going to really be super helpful. My dad did own his own business when I was a kid. He still does. He still does taxes and stuff like that. I knew that by owning your own business you can make some money. Beyond that, I didn't know. I literally knew nothing else about it. So whatever it is that you are tinkering around with right now, whatever you're messing around with right now, if it's new and you don't feel great about it, don't worry about it, because keep doing it, and over a period of time you will get better at it. Strength is never a weakness, weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.